So, Daan, you just got to watch Sonic the Hedgehog 2 in theaters because you're super lucky and live in the Netherlands, where it's out
Yes.
now.
I was out in France and the Netherlands today, yeah. So the rest of Europe gets a chance very soon on Friday. Most of Europe will get it on Friday, and then a week later, the US. How they did it this time is a little weird, but there you go.
Many of us in the rest of the world have to wait until sometime next week. I mean,
Yes.
even all like the movie social medias have been advertising, get to see the movie 2 days early. I'm like, okay, but you guys in Europe get it all week early.
Yeah.
Anyway, we decided to sit down and have a nice little review discussion to go over your impressions, since, as of recording, you just got out of this. And of course, we'll be keeping this video spoiler-free as well, so you guys don't have to worry about that. So, Daan, initial impressions. How did you feel going in and coming out?
I was pretty stoked to go and see the movie. When we got the date announced for the 30th over here, I was like, I had to buy tickets immediately as possible. The problem with like Dutch theaters is they don't open tickets until the week of.
Oh.
So you cannot really reserve, unlike in other countries. So I had to like literally check until they became available on the schedule for that week.
Mhm.
So I was on Sunday just refreshing the entire day to get my tickets, which I did. Even though the theater wasn't all that packed, to be honest. So I got to see the only, let's say, what's called subtitle showing of today, because it's also dubbed here, which has more showings across the day. But
Okay.
obviously I went for the English because that's the language I like to speak more, to be honest with you. So I went in, watched the movie. Overall, it's good. It's quite good. Do I think it is as good as the first movie? That's where it becomes a little complicated, because the first movie felt more like a road trip for roughly the first, I would say, 3/5 of its spanning time, with Tom and Sonic going on various hijinks across bars and various elements across the greater USA or across Green Hills. Here, it feels like they're starting a road trip, but then immediately cuts off into a different direction. So the first half of the movie feels like it's going that road trip direction again, but this time it's Sonic and Tails and less so Tom. And then the second half speeds up a whole lot more, and we get a quicker resolution to things in that second half. It's still very good and very enjoyable, but it's a different structure nonetheless.
Yeah, that definitely. I mean, it's nice that it starts with I guess the best way to put it is a sense of familiarity for fans of the first movie. So maybe that's what it takes for Sonic to become friends with somebody. He has to road trip with them. So in order for him to become friends with Tails, they have to take a little bit of a road trip.
Right. And it's a small thing, but it's worth pointing out. This second movie immediately starts where the first one left off before the post-credit sequence. So with Dr. Eggman. It immediately continues from that point onward, basically.
Okay, I see. So it's a direct sequel, like literally from that moment. No time skip or anything.
There's a small time skip of a number of days, and he holds a log every single day, so he kind of goes through the motions there. But you get a kind of idea what I've been doing over that period and where it leads to, basically.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So, I guess, yeah, you kind of jumped right into my main question, too, which was really, how do you feel it compares to the first movie? And, I mean, you mentioned the first movie really feels like a road trip movie. I know a lot of people compare it to, like, a buddy cop kind of movie in terms of the way it plays out. Whereas this movie seems a lot more focused on Sonic and friends. And that's not at all a bad thing. That's what a lot of Sonic fans want out of a Sonic movie. But that's actually the main critique I've been seeing. People, like, giving genuine criticisms of the movie. They're like, oh, this movie feels more focused on Sonic and Tails and Knuckles and Robotnik and not enough on, like, the other human characters, which kind of surprises me, but it surprises me that that's a big criticism, but I mean, it's a Sonic movie.
I mean, if you look back at the first movie, you had a lot of comedy relief between the other cop Wade and Tom, and you had with his wife discussing constantly things what's happening because she didn't know anything what was going on. You had, of course, the military organization mixing it up with Dr. Robotnik.
Yep.
And there was a lot of play between the actual human characters, which was still very funny. Like if you look back at it, there's still a lot of good comedy there and a lot of good moments. But it's a lot more focused on Sonic and then from a very point on Dr. Eggman, Knuckles, and Tails. Like it's a lot of the movie. And that doesn't mean that Tom is completely gone from the movie. There is an actual subplot that plays later into the movie. But at the beginning, that first half, it kind of seems random and out of nowhere. And there's only context plays in that second half why the pieces of Tom are there in the first place.
Okay, I see. I guess that's fair. I mean, they had to find a way to balance adding in the new actual Sonic characters and balancing that with the human characters. But I guess, would you say the human characters like Tom and his wife feel shafted at all? Or do they still feel like they play an important enough role that it still they still feel welcome and present? They don't feel like they simply brought them back because they were in the first one?
It feels a bit more like they brought them back because they are in the first one.
Okay.
Once again, like later in the movie, their part is better played out, but you don't really get a good indication of that in that first half. It's like it's kind of random that they're going on a holiday, and that Sonic gives them something to return back to. But that becomes a plot point later on, and why that is and why it's happening, and the context for that becomes later on far more clearer. But it's a weird one because it's kind of being mostly mixed between mostly parts of Sonic and Tails interacting with each other and becoming friends. But then you have these weird pieces with Tom, his girlfriend, and an entire situation that feels a lot separate and relegated smaller on the totem pole.
Okay, I see. So, compared to, I think enough from the trailers, we know that Tom and his wife go off to a wedding, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess that's like comparatively while Sonic's off stopping Robotnik's return, Tom's just trying to keep this wedding together.
Yeah.
Comparatively.
I mean, for Robotnik, Knuckles, Tails, and Sonic, there is a far bigger role to play in this because they're going out at one another for one specific goal throughout the movie.
Okay.
So it makes sense that you would focus on them. It's weird that the role of the human characters doesn't become clear like far later on until the movie. Like there is some like relieving parts where Tom tries to be sort of a dad to Sonic at the beginning of the movie. And Sonic kind of rejects it. But that plays again a role later on that feels more well fleshed out.
Okay. I don't think that's a bad approach. Obviously, I'll have to see it for myself to gauge it myself. But I mean, when you're trying to introduce even more Sonic characters, you have to find a way to balance that. I'm sure because if they spent all this marketing and all this production to add in Tails and Knuckles, but Tom still has more screen time than both of them, I think people would have been upset.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you did mention like fleshing out characters though. So let's shift that over in terms of fleshing out characters to some of the new ones. So let's look at Tails and Knuckles. I mean, finally getting more of some of the main Sonic cast into this. How well do you think they're integrated here into this world?
Idris Elba as Knuckles is genuinely amazing.
I was gonna ask about the performances, so that is a relief to hear.
Yeah, like he tries to play off like a very sophisticated Knuckles, like a real warrior type that comes up for the realisms of his clan that has far gone, and he's the last survivor of a sort of warrior race. He tries to speak like very sophisticated throughout every encounter with Sonic, and it plays into the fact that Sonic like plays things more off as a joke.
Yeah.
And there's a really good dynamic there, and I really appreciate about it. Tails is basically like he is in the modern Sonic games. Like it's literally the voice, It's literally the play of being a buddy to Sonic, and it's basically introducing that relationship in this movie. They don't know each other at all, but you quickly realize how quickly, in a span of like 30 minutes, to become really close.
That's good.
Like, there's a good character amount of play here, and you can see like the gears of Knuckles kind of shift across the movie. Like, he's clearly heading out to get Sonic in the beginning, but he will change his motives over time and realize that maybe he's not looking at things the right way.
And that sounds a bit like any Sonic game plot there, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense there. That's good to hear, though. I mean, people were really hoping that Idris Elba brought a really good role for Knuckles. Like, they were really hoping he brings a good performance, and people were really hoping the same for Tails with Colleen O'Shaughnessy coming back. And it sounds like they play the characters really well, and the characters work well in here, and that's fantastic to hear, honestly.
To be fair, without Colleen, Tails wouldn't feel like Tails. And we say that with Sonic in the first Sonic movie too, but with Tails, like, it has this very specific voice that is hard to detach from the character now.
Yeah.
Where Sonic still shifts a lot. And even with, like, Knuckles, like, Idris Elba is such a far cry, say, from what Sonic Boom Knuckles was. Let's not kid ourselves. That's a whole different take on that specific character.
Yeah, one is a knucklehead, one is Knuckles.
I mean, this Knuckles is still driven in his ways and is too focused at points. At moments where he doesn't really know what fun really is. But it's a different take that I do appreciate, because it's kind of what he was in the early 2D Sonic games, right? When he was introduced. Like, he was a more serious character. And I think that's a good direction for Idris Elba to take that character in.
Yeah. No, from what I know about it, I mean, I definitely agree with that. And I think that'll bring a powerful performance instead of, telling Idris Elba to get in front of the mic and start telling jokes. Like...
Right. Yeah.
because if he had the same personality as Sonic, I mean, or like complete, ignorance to everything and just sounding silly, like in Sonic Boom, for example, I don't think that would have played out well.
No, at all. Not at all. Absolutely not.
So it's good to hear that it's actually better than that, and it definitely. I mean, even just in talking on this, it really sounds like they know what they're doing with this movie, basically.
Yeah, it's clear that they had already the plot lines in place when they were wrapping up the first movie and knew where it was going. It kind of feels that way with this movie too, where there's a real definitive end that leaves it open for the future.
Okay.
Like, you see one half where it's closing and the other half where it's beginning. And I think that's really important, because they already said they're making a third movie. That's known fact. And I think that they are setting this up, not baiting the audience and giving them a bad ending, because it's still, like the first movie, a good ending, like a very definitive ending. But it leaves it open enough that there's something more devious coming around the corner.
Okay. Without getting into the spoilery specifics of it, the first movie ended with that after credit scene with Tails coming in and people getting really excited seeing that, yes, there is indeed more to come.
Right.
Again, without the specifics behind it, does this movie also have a nice end credit scene that hypes people up for the future?
Oh my god, yes. I literally don't want to say it, because I want to see people see it in theaters, believe me. And there's a nice sequence first where you get like the first movie where it ends with like game-like Sonic in 2D fighting everything that he came across in this movie.
That's fun.
But then like the post-credit scene comes and you think it's one thing, and then it completely shifts, and like fans will kind of shift the gears around in their head. But the moment that shot comes, the very last shot of this entire film, it will definitely stick until like a third movie releases, I'm sure.
Ooh. You hear that, everybody? Make sure to stay after the credits.
It's worth it. It's definitely worth it, especially if you're a Sonic fan. Like, it's It's exciting.
That's good
It's
to hear.
exciting.
That's really good to hear. Speaking of exciting, one thing that we haven't touched upon yet that I have literally dedicated to its own little section here, we got to talk about Jim Carrey's Robotnik. Because him as the character is just exciting. And ever since they revealed this movie and shown that he looks the part even more, it's been really exciting to see how he plays the role here.
He turned from Robotnik to proper Eggman.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, he now has the shaved head. He has absolutely the mustache in place now. This man transformed into a proper Eggman. And Sonic, like, calls him Eggman throughout the movie. It's all falling into place. Like, I can only recall 1 or 2 times where Sonic calls him Robotnik.
Okay.
Honestly. Like, it's more Eggman now than it was before.
Okay, so we're really heading into that then.
Yeah. But he plays the part so well. And he's a little bit more, like, how to say this properly? In the first movie, I wouldn't say he was fully unhinged, but he was already out there and weird. In the second movie, you can see the experiences on the mushroom planet, like, shaped him for the worse. And he's a little more unhinged in the goals he wants to achieve. He's still very focused on those goals. And he tries to be very buddy-buddy with Knuckles in the beginning. But you can also see internally by him the gears kind of turn and see where he's really going for by the end of things.
Okay. That's good to hear. I mean, Jim Carrey always plays like really good unhinged characters. Let's be real here. So that sounds perfect for him.
Like, I also like. I continue to love to play with Agent Stone. Like, Agent Stone was also such a delight in the first movie, and a fun thing, and it's not really a spoiler. He ends up being a barista because we know him making coffee for Robotnik all the freaking time in the first movie. He started a little barista stand called Mean Bean.
Oh, the Mean Bean Cafe. That's right. I remember when I remember some of the trailers we've seen him like in the barista outfit, and I think one of the posters they put out for the movie is even Agent Stone with like the cup of coffee. That's so clever. That's a great reference, though.
I mean, I would say that the humor overall is... You can still see how this Sonic is shaped by, like, extremely referential elements, like, from pop culture. When they explain... And this is, once again, not really a spoiler, especially if you played the games about the war of the Echidnas and where Longclaw's from, because that's also mentioned in the first movie in the very beginning. They go through a specific place, and at the end, Sonic says, like Vin Diesel and The Rock.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Sonic watches too many movies in our world.
Yeah. He continuously be shaped by very cultured elements of life.
So now it won't just be fans watching and going, oh, I understood that Sonic reference. You can have other people come in going, oh, I understood that reference in general.
Very true. That's very true.
All right. Well, any final thoughts that you want to share on Sonic the Hedgehog 2? I mean, overall, would you say you like this movie better or worse than the first one?
I think equal amounts.
Equal? Okay.
I wouldn't say one is superior over the other. Like, I feel that was a lot more interesting play with the human characters in the first one, but there is more interesting play with the actual main cast of the Sonic games in this one. And the human characters feel absolutely underplayed in this one. Like, even, like, for example, the police officer Wade makes a return in this movie, and that feels kind of underplayed. Like, any reference to the human characters of the previous movie feels a little underplayed.
Okay.
And their roles, once again, really only become clear, like, towards the second half of the movie. And I feel like they could have done a little bit more to enhance that, but at the same time, it would maybe also take away from the invasion that Dr. Eggman and Knuckles bring from the very get-go. I also say this is something we haven't really touched on, but there's a lot more gadget play by Tails in this movie. Like, it feels like he's been more slowed down as a sidekick. But he has his little machines, like a translation machine, where they are in a specific part of the world, and they use it to translate it, and it's completely buggy, and it goes way out of hand.
Ah, so the early days of Google Translate. Gotcha.
Basically.
Well, I think that'll wrap up this review discussion of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I am super excited to see this movie next week. Daan, I'm so jealous you got to see it already. But I hope all of you watching this, are excited to see it too. With that, thank you all for watching. Make sure to subscribe to GameXplain for plenty more on Sonic, because I'm sure we'll have another discussion on this when Andre and myself get to go see it. And, in general, other things gaming as well. Until next time, farewell everyone.